Our food supply really depends upon a few inches of topsoil, which are disappearing, and a handful of seeds, which are also disappearing, and a little bit of water, which, by the way, happens to also be disappearing.
I'm not certain why it hasn't shown up sooner, but for a long time the world has actually been eating more than we've been able to produce. There isn't a surplus of food.
Less and less it's a system designed to maximize the production of food, and more it's a system designed to maximize the production of profits.
Food. Our lives depend on it. In the supermarket, it looks like there's a lot of food. But is this abundant supply of inexpensive food an illusion? We have a food system that literally runs on oil. Our crops are at risk from climate change, and we're losing control of our food supply.
Our food supply is at risk. Without the demands of climate change, we'd be in trouble.
It's not just climate change or the price of oil that now threatens our food supply. It's those who want to control it. From the seeds we plant, to the crops we grow, to the food on our tables, the future of our food supply is being hijacked.
It's probably a surprise to most people who live in cities still that our food supply really depends upon a few inches of topsoil, which are disappearing, and a handful of seeds, which are also disappearing, and a little bit of water, which, by the way, happens to also be disappearing. It's a very fragile base of raw materials that get food on the table every year. And probably of all of those areas, soil, topsoil, and water, seeds are really the most vulnerable. They've been disappearing rapidly and are continuing to evaporate around us every growing season.
Terry Boehm is one of those people who grow our food. For 4 generations, this farm has supported his family and helped feed us. It's spring and time to plant seeds. Seeds he saved from last year's crop. But every year, there's a lot that can go wrong.
You never know what the weather will do to you. You can have a hailstorm and have your crop destroyed that looks wonderful. Early frost, droughts can take away your year's work. But what's happening is the ability of me to be able to control some of my costs, and by seed saving and doing what farmers have always done, is being infringed upon. And indeed, multinational companies have recognized how much wealth can be generated by control of the seed. And when they have control of the seed, they'll have control of the food system and how your food is produced.
I did the calculation the other day. If the entire world adopted the North American system of producing and preparing and transporting and consuming food, it would literally liquidate the global oil supply in 44 years. That is how vastly unsustainable our high energy use agriculture is.
It takes more than seeds to get food on our table. Our industrial food system depends on oil, fuel for machinery, petroleum-based pesticides, herbicides, and fertilizers, fuel to transport our food.
We literally have a food production system that stretches from oil fields at one end to the drive-through restaurant at the other. When you look at that chain, 3 things stand out. The first thing is, at every link in that chain, you've got a tiny number of dominant corporations, transnationals. The second thing you notice is that the players in that chain are really, really big. And the third thing you see in this chain is that it's characterized by massive profitability. 2004 and 2005, these were years of record profits for the vast majority of the corporations that make up the agri-food chain.
The seeds we plant, the crops we grow, the food we eat, everything is affected by the concentration of control.
It dates back to the beginning of the 20th century, because at that time, seeds were still in the hands of farmers. It was farmers who were leading all the innovation with seeds, who were developing, adapting, selecting for mostly the local food needs, because it was we had local food systems at that time. But at the beginning of the 20th century, You had a move on the part of the Canadian state and business to try to develop a national agribusiness.
This industrialization of agriculture profoundly changed how we farmed, what we ate, and how we grew our food. Assembly lines of the new food processing plants wanted uniform sizes and uniform tastes. Mechanization, probably the most significant change in 10,000 years of agriculture, even changed the crops we grew. New abundance, but at a price.
If you look at the last century, the first thing that happened was farmers were sold energy, power, get rid of the horses, get the tractor, a positive step perhaps. But then the next thing it was fertility, chemical fertilizers in the wake of World War II.
Everything would have been, basically organic up until the advent of the post-World War II chemicals, leftover fuel for bombs, for ammunition, all those kind of things, and the scientific labs that were, I guess, initially working towards this idea that we can probably tweak a lot of things with science. This is crazy. We can't be using stuff that was meant in maybe in a warfare situation to be using this to produce food.
Crazy? Perhaps. Yields did improve with chemical herbicides and fertilizers, but farmers had to buy them each year. A big change from the old ways. What was next?
And then the next thing that had to be replaced was farmers' self-supply of seed, and that was turned into something that you sell to farmers. And it wasn't immediately clear how they were going to do that with seeds, because farmers can really supply that well and very efficiently for themselves. But what the industry did was they started to set up a whole bunch of impediments and roadblocks to just make it harder and harder and really drive the farmers increasingly into the arms of the people that want to sell them seeds.
For 10,000 years, farmers have planted crops and saved their seeds. How do you undo 10,000 years of agriculture? How do you prevent farmers from saving seeds?
The companies began by telling us in the 1970s, we'll never interfere with the farmer's right to be able to save and exchange seed. That's an inalienable right of the farmer. By the 1980s, they were saying the farmer's privilege to be able to save and exchange seed. By the 1990s, they were saying farmers are pirating our seeds if they save and exchange them. And now, in country after country, they're saying this is illegal, they have to be stopped, and even talking about criminal liability if farmers steal their seeds.
My great-grandfather started in this area. My grandfather and my father still farms, and close to 4,000 acres, which is sort of medium-large for Canadian prairies. When agricultural production is totally controlled from the seed to the plate, that control is going to result in really huge profits for somebody, and it's not going to be the guy sitting down for dinner, and it's not going to be the farmer.
If you add up farmers' net farm incomes since 1985, you come up with zero. There hasn't really been a dollar made since the mid-'80s. But if you add up the value of the farmer's production since 1985, if you add up their gross revenues, it comes up to $2/3 of $1 trillion. Where'd the $2/3 of $1 trillion go if farmers kept zero? It went to the people that sell us our energy, our chemicals, our seeds, our technologies. That $2/3 of $1 trillion has been captured by the transnational input companies, and not one dime has stayed on Canadian farms over that 20-year period. If there was an award for wealth extraction, I mean, that is an Academy Award-winning performance in terms of wealth extraction. They are 100% successful.
Wait a minute.